Welcome, everybody. This is the final session for the conference. It's the session on agriculture. And so, as we know, agriculture is very important. I'm an electrical engineer, and people ask me, when's the last time you changed a light bulb? And then they ask me, when's the last time you ate? So agriculture is very important, right? We have our first speaker, the keynote, Vineet Singh, if he could join us in the front here. Yes, please. Okay. And he's the senior platform architect for Digital Green, and he's going to be presenting. And so he's really going to set us up nicely here, talking about incentives and roles across the agricultural data exchange ecosystem to enable farmer-level impact.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vineet from Digital Green, and I'm going to talk about the potential of ecosystem-level agriculture data exchange and what are the roles and incentives of all the ecosystem actors. So, brief background about Digital Green. We are a global not-for-profit organization headquartered in San Francisco, but deeply rooted in India and Africa, especially Ethiopia and Kenya. And we are on a mission to create a world where smallholder farmers can increase their income and improve their livelihood and create prosperous communities and use the technology for that. We are grateful to have donors like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UKFCDO, Walmart Foundation, and also have partners like Ministry of Agriculture Ethiopia, ATI, and various government agencies in India. And through these partnerships, we have worked with different extension workers. More than 50,000 extension workers we have partnered and created a approach of disseminating video which is made by the community and then shown by the extension workers. And this approach has led to a reach of 3.2 million farmers that has increased the income by 17%, and that has been found to be much more effective than the traditional extension work. And all this has been evaluated independently by various RCT trials. So coming to the topic and the big question, we all talk about data, data-driven agriculture, and what it can or cannot do. But I just wanted to start with a more of a step back as to what does it really mean and what does it really mean for the farmers. And if we think through farmer perspective, this is what the actual farming looks like. We have got a farmer who has to take care of multiple activities. They are engaged in field work. They are engaged in taking care of the household, in group activity, all sorts of livestock and input and business activities as well. And when we talk about data, we are really trying to abstract this physical world into some sort of abstract understanding. And what does it mean for the farmers? It's not that the data or information has not been used by farmers. It probably has been used from the time farming has been done. The farmer understood what needs to be done for the field, for the plant to survive, for the output to be good. That information and those kind of models were passed on from generation to generation. They interacted with various kind of communities, and through that, they have been able to use and create a model. But this has got completely disrupted in the last 50, 60 years with modern agriculture. We have got interventions at various levels. We have now got even further level of disruption that is happening because of availability of phones. Farmers have now got at least a feature phone. Their data is there, and we can think of the data that a farmer has or about the farmer in three parts, basically: about the farmer, about the farm, and about the farming activity. And all sorts of this information that is there, they have different attributes. There's personal information that is sensitive. There's farm level information that's more of ecological data. There's farming level information, which is more of behavioral or transaction kind of an information. And that brings us back to the question of what does it really mean for the farmer? What is the farmer's perspective out here? And this picture is taken from one of the our intervention and where we are helping farmers to connect to the buyers. And this lady is carrying 35 to 40 kgs of weight in scorching heat and barefoot. And farming, first of all, for a smallholder farmer, is a business activity. It is a means of creating wealth, means of creating livelihood through which they can feed and they can survive. And like any business activity, there is if it's not a regular paying job where you get income at the end of the month. There are a lot of uncertainties that are out there. And the uncertainties of market, policies, and now even more climate, where it can rain anytime, or they can have different kind of pest attacks or insect attacks. And that means that farmers' needs are very urgent. There's always a sense of urgency when they need a solution. Like in this particular case, the farmer wants to sell the produce, otherwise that value is zero. That 6 months worth of effort has gone to zero. That happens when there is a pest attack. That entire crop can be lost in a day or two. And what farmers get is a very top-down services which are sort of detached from the ground realities. And that brings us to the question of, how this last mile delivery, which we want to probably provide to the farmer, can be broken down. And I think this was mentioned in one of the presentation yesterday and today as well. 5 A's, we talk of 3 A's, that they need to be aware of the solution that or the services that are there. In many of the cases, the farmers are not even aware of the schemes that are there, whether they are eligible or not. Second, these kind of solutions need to be accessible. And then there has to be a level of affordability for the farmers to actually adopt it. And with that context, I want to then touch on, when we talk about data exchange or information exchange, how can that enable farmers to engage on these 3 requirements, to have better awareness, better accessibility, and more affordable solutions. So for farmers, the enablers are, the data about the farmer, that I know that this farmer is basically producing this particular crop or this particular variety. I can then create awareness about the service. Digitization can solve the accessibility issues. And collectivization gives that negotiation power, which farming as a business activity, they are sandwiched between big players on both sides, both input and output. So these 3 are the enablers for any small scale farmer. And if you are thinking of this agriculture data exchange that can bring certain change, for the service provider, they need, with the increasing level of competition that is going on, they want to onboard as many farmers, and they also want to create better trust. So whether they can provide certain services which are complementary, which is where they can offer a bundle of services. And incentives for the government research organizations could be for creating this public good, where they can enable this ecosystem that actually helps the farmers, and ensuring certain level of data policies and compliance. So this is what our entire conceptualization of agriculture data exchange is, and the various ecosystem actors that emerges out, and what are the roles. So there's farmer at the outermost who want to get that access to timely services, where they can say that this is the information that, or this is the solution that I need, and this is my information. I want to basically provide through an app or through certain means. And then there are different organizations that are having this disparate set of data about the farmers. Uh, and these organizations can basically either exchange this information in a secured way uh, to provide better services to the farmers themselves. And for that, they can basically register uh, at a public sector, at a nodal agency who wants to orchestrate a network. So the public sector organizations like government agencies or research organizations, they can act as a gatekeeper where they can invite all these participant organizations where they can exchange this information in a free and secured manner. Uh, what are the key technology elements needed to build the information exchange and how we have built this? So what we know from farmer side, uh, when we are talking about the data itself, there is, on the farmer side, the exact data about or the exact information is something that only the farmer knows, what is being done. There's a lot of information that can be gathered through satellite imagery or stuff like that, but still majority of the information about what is happening on ground is something that is to be collected from the farmers. And the actual source of truth is going to be the farmer. And when we are talking about collecting that data from the farmers, it is difficult at multiple levels. We are basically asking someone, what did you do last season? What did you do before that? How that is even possible. And then there are multiple standards, and there are multiple units, and there are multiple languages on top of it. And then there's also that farmers don't trust even the local bodies. They trust probably their community members themselves, people whom they know. If I try to interact with a farmer today, they're not really keen on talking. And what we know from the service provider side, that all the organization, they want data in a certain format. It's not just random data, or they want a specific kind of data for a specific kind of service. And they want a validated quality data. Whether I want to build any kind of a AI application or I simply want to provide certain level of accessibility, I need a validated quality data about the farmers. And on top of it, they also have a trust issue that if I have to exchange this information, whether this information is going to be used for that specific purpose. So based on this, the model that we developed and we have been, we are actually developing. we at the cost of sounding fancy, we use the term phygital or product plus service pack. Essentially have human intervention along with technology. So imagine that there is a community person who can interact with the farmer. The farmers who can afford a smartphone can have that smartphone or the app. Otherwise, the community person can interact, whom they trust, who can talk in the language that the farmers understand. And these community person, they collect this information about the farmers. There is a service which benchmarks this information, and they can provide the instant advisory at that particular point of time. And all this information can then be accessed by different organizations to provide new opportunities and new services. And this sort of tech product plus service pack is core to our approach on developing the use cases. And coming to the backbone of creating that data exchange that is collected at the local community level, FarmStack is the DPG that we are developing. Essentially, it's an edge application that can run on any kind of a cloud or on-premise, and it's a customizable connector. So it can ingest any kind of API or any kind of file, and the two connectors can talk to each other in a secured encrypted manner so that the data is exchanged directly between two parties without anyone being able to see that. And on top of it, these connectors can be used to enforce the usage policy, which enforces that the data is used for that specific purpose only. This is a live example of data sharing network in India, where FPO stands for Farmer Producer Organizations. So Farmer Producer Organization is the local community where they use a company's grading machine to assess the grade of the quality grade of the produce of the farmers. The community community manages a registry and aggregate information, and the farmers give the consent to whether give this data or not to various service providers, which includes market side or advisory or also soil testing. And this is one example of customized advisory that's controlled by farmer organizations. So I'll just play this video. This is an old video. Can we play the video?
Hello everyone. We will be looking into Tara use case which demonstrates FarmStack's usability. As we all know, FarmStack enables organizations to share data with each other in a secured way. First, let's look into the architecture of Tara use case. So here we have two organizations. One is an FPO, which is Farmer Producer Group, and we have ISRIC. So FPO wants to provide soil related advisories to farmers. And we have ISRIC, which is a provider, which can provide you with soil parameters based on any given geolocation. So in general, a user of FPO would upload farmer details, and there is a connector configured which would send only the location details of the farmer to ISRIC and gets the response of soil parameters related to that particular location. Once the soil parameters are received, the application would trigger an IVR service which would send advisories to all farmers. Let's now look into the demo. So this is the Tara Central dashboard of an FPO. So here the user would select a file. For demonstration purpose, I would be selecting a dummy data. Here. And once the file has been uploaded, the FPO can start the soil IVR, which would collect the information of soil from ISRIC and would trigger an IVR for all the farmers in that particular file. Here, as you can see, the soil IVR has started and I have received a response, and there is a call which has been initiated and I have received a call.
Yeah, I think we can go back to the presentation. This is in the local language. Yeah. Sorry? Oh, yeah, I don't understand. So what we essentially built there was a simple UI. I think one of the key aspects that is missing there is a UI or a UX which can be used by farmers or farmer organizations. So simple UI, and they have this information in XLS. So what we actually want, it's not about creating all those kind of data standards there, but location and phone number and name of the farmers, which can then be, if the farmers want that particular service, that can be uploaded, and using that location, the soil parameters that are captured from one of the research labs, and based on that, the advisory was provided instantly in that particular language. And this is one of the examples of how local community-based approach can work, where this information and all these different services that can be integrated inside that particular connector itself. We are also working with ATI in Ethiopia, and this is a snapshot of the uh, data catalog that is being created there, where different data sets can be published. And based on these, the description, so the idea of having these data catalog, which is run by the nodal agency in our diagram, is that people can look at what data is there before actually doing some sort of a data exchange itself. So to summarize, we have the key to having a successful intervention. There is a need of a kind of a phygital model, uh, which can reach and involve farmers and which can use the local communities. And there's a need of a customizable solution, uh, a product plus service pack where we can onboard and we can create different applications. And most importantly, that apart from the back end, there is also an interactive or a very intuitive UI UX that is required for each of these interventions that need to be created. So with that, I'll end the presentation. Thanks.
So, do we have questions from the audience? Comments?
Oh, that's great. I don't know if I confused or I I was able to be very, very clear.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I know that agriculture is a major thing in Kenya, at least, so I think it's a good idea in that area. I've seen that you are collecting soil parameters. I've seen you said soil depth. What else is there?
No, so we are not collecting any of these soil parameters. There is, in this particular project, we were collaborating with ISRIC. They have something called soil grid, 250 meter by 250 meter accuracy data. So we are integrating that particular information. So right now, the basic thing is that I can use the satellite imagery to know what are the soil parameters at this particular place. Okay. But who owns this field is something that is in some registry, in some other data set. How do I take this information? And there's a model that says that, if I know the soil characteristics accurately, I can then advise what fertilizers or what are the what are the various things that you need to do. Okay. But I have those models, I have the soil parameters, but I can't relate it back to the farmer, to the last mile. Okay. And that is what the data pipeline that we create using those connectors does. It takes the input from the local information and then gets back those parameters and in fact triggers those advisory. And all of this can be automated.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. My name is Crispin from Rica. My question actually has some similarity with the previous one. Getting the data from the field, like soil parameters, that is one thing. But sharing the data with the people or the people in rural areas so that they can know how to do or what to do with those data, that is another thing. And that is what I wanted to hear from you. Try to explain more. How do you share those data, like soil parameters, with the local people? Do you have someone who goes in the rural areas or in the local communities and try to explain to those people that this means this and this? So that is what I want to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so the data that we actually sort of enable or enable the communities to collect. In Indian context, we call farmer producer companies or farmer producer cooperatives or organization. In various places, they are called development groups in Ethiopia. Uh, so it's basically a simple data collection app. And what it can do is you can have as many data points that you want to collect, and it can be pre-populated. So typically, the process is that they have some information of some of the members, so they can just simply upload, and this will be pre-populated. And the local community member who is going to interact will have an application. So I can then create forms. So it's essentially a form builder with pre-populated information about the farmer, so that the effort of collecting that information is minimized in the first place. Because when we are when we are talking about and interestingly, we have done some projects on climate smart agriculture and so on, where we need a ton of information. It's just impossible to understand, and it takes a lot of effort to just get that data in the first place. So that is the form builder, and a very intuitive kind of a feel through which that information can be captured through by the frontline or the community person whom we work with. So that, in fact, that application is what we call as KD, Kisan Diary, which is basically farmer diary. So that is the application that we use to collect that information. But it is used in a way that it is done by the community. We are just helping them manage that data. We are not, we are or helping them manage and share it, not be the custodian of that particular data. They do that particular part.
Thank you, Vineet. Himanshu, I started 7 years ago in the development sector with a field trip with your team in Bihar. So thank you for that. I was blown away then, and I'm sure if we are back in the field, I'll see a new phygital solution. Quick question. You mentioned an ag stack. Can you share a bit more on what's, in your view, what are the different components of an ag stack? I know it was probably a different project than what you just shared, but can you share a little bit more? What are the different elements or components of an ag stack? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that is the farm stack part that I've not shown in the kind of a stack kind of a way, but essentially, so the core of the stack is the connector that we talk about, which is and there's always this question of the difference between APIs and connectors. Connector is simply put, that's encapsulating, that's creating something. You can think of a VPN of an API, if that doesn't complicate it a bit. So connector is, and what we have created is what we call as trusted connector. It's customizable. So in all the agriculture related, any kind of data and data processing or exchange that we see, the data is in all shapes and formats. It's in XLS or a Google Sheet, or some places there are APIs when we talk about satellite imagery. So what this connector consists of is a container management layer, and on top of it, I have these containers that can be created. It is built on all the open source protocols, Apache Camel and those kind of stuff. And this is then this core of the connector is something that can be created through a one-click solution on the interface. So essentially, if I think of, there are three layers. One is the metadata layer, where we have the data catalog. And that metadata, I have the connector information. And that connector information is then used for exchanging that data from one entity to the other. So that's how we look at the stack, where we are trying to sort of not show it as a stack now, but as a more of a horizontal system as a business functionality, or how it actually is implemented in the field.